If Winston Churchill was locked in a tower, never met anyone, didn't know anything, but was very good at writing motivational speeches, and all he did was record speeches, galvanised the country, brought everyone together, and won the war because of that, is he a great leader? I've got some questions for you. I've I watched the Super Bowl the other day, and I've been running around in my head just a few things that I've seen, and I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think. I was thinking about who. So, in particular, the Chiefs. I was looking at the Chiefs, and there's a few things that happened. Obviously, the Kelce shouting at head coach Andy Reid, and a lot of controversy. A lot of people didn't like it. Um, the first question that came to my mind was, would he have put up with anyone else doing that? Was there any special treatment? Is he afraid of him? Was he intimidated by him? Don't know. There were a lot of thoughts that went through my head, but I was thinking, as the head coach, if I was the leader, would I allow that in front of the world? Would I allow that behaviour? I think it's how I handled my press conferences, and I would probably belittle what he did in a press conference, and I probably would say something like, um, "It's really bad, but to maintain my authority, if that was the sort of leadership I had, I probably would say something like, listen, it's like having a child. I sometimes you have to let them blow off a little steam. He is what he is. I'm not fussed by it in the slightest. He's like a little boy having a tantrum. He's fine. It's cool. So you would undermine what he did. Um, but it did make me think: who's in charge? Who's the leader? Is the coach the one who makes up the plays? Is he the one that manages the situation? Is he the tactician? Um, the shot caller? Is or is someone within the team the main leader? And I mentioned this before with like soccer football, and I was saying if someone within the team is not necessarily the captain, not necessarily the manager, not necessarily the coach, but the team were following that person, and that person was very motivational and inspirational, and the team went and did stuff because that person did stuff, then does that make them the leader? So is necessarily that head coach the leader of the team, or are they the head coach of the team? Doesn't necessarily have to be that person. If you've got a head coach with no ego and who's very sensible, and they realise that there is someone within that team who the team will follow. So say for example you took over a team, you're a young head coach and you've got Tom Brady as your quarterback. You can't go in there and just be like, you listen to me, you do as I'm telling you. You have to respect the fact that he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You have to get him on side because everyone will follow him. And if it was a you versus him situation, they're probably going to follow him. So he's the most influential piece on your chessboard, and you have to manage him to manage the team, if that makes sense. But I was looking as well at someone like so Patrick Mahomes. So you got the quarterback who is the by default the leader on the pitch, the one who makes the calls on the pitch. He is the most influential player on the pitch generally. They're the star of the team generally. Not always, but they generally are the make or break of the team. So if you've got someone who's the star player, exactly like I said with if you've got Tom Brady or you've got Mahomes, does that necessarily make them the leader? And is there a difference between off the field and on the field? So could that quarterback be a very influential leader on the field and make very good decisions in the moment and be in control of the team, that knows who to tell to shut up, when to shut up, and is in control of that team on the field. But then when they get off the field, they keep themselves to themselves. They're very introverted, blah blah blah. All the other way around. Someone who's quite quiet on the pitch, but then when they're off the pitch, they tell everyone to train properly, live properly, and everyone kind of follows their lead. So could it be someone? So my question is about the quarterback, though. Necessarily, is has it always been the case that the quarterback, part of their skill set is they need to be a leader on and off the field? Can you be an effective quarterback without being a leader of men, if that makes sense? Someone who is automatically in the leading role, in the limelight? Or can you have other people someone else who will look after that quarterback, put their arm around the quarterback, protect the quarterback naturally? If you've got someone very protective, some huge offensive lineman who's just really, or defensive lineman, because their job is to protect that quarterback. That's their job. But what if someone that is like, the Blind Side in that film, you got that Michael, I can't remember his name. But what if he was incredibly defensive, protective person instinctively, and but he was also like led by example. I watched that other film, the other American football film the other day, the one what's it called? It's on Amazon. It's about the dude who he played for a college team, and he only just they made the rule about a walk on, players who are walk ons, and he made it to the NFL, and he died in a car crash before season started. I can't remember his name. I can't remember the name of the film. Sad story. But the way that the team, all those players kind of bullied him, but because he was just out, and like that scene where they gave him alcohol and he just went out and ran because he had to run it off, and they were just like, "Ugh, we'll follow him," and then they did end up following him because how he how he led him, how he managed himself, represented himself, and then everyone followed him. And he was quite protective of the other players as well. He wanted to take the blame for other people's mistakes, and he kind of became a bit of a protector. So can that person be the leader of the team kind of by default? Um, I just find it interesting if you've got someone who's a leader on the pitch and someone who's a leader off the pitch. So the coach is obviously off the pitch all the time. But have you got players that as soon as they go, I know there's a lot of players I played with, is in like soccer football, and as soon as they're on the pitch, they're completely different animals. Off the pitch, they're nothing like what they are on the pitch. They change completely. So I wonder if there are people who are very effective on the pitch, but then they wouldn't be leaders because they can't carry it on off the pitch. So is that a prerequisite? Is this something that's compulsory? Do you have to be able to be a leader on and off the pitch? And in American football as well, is that something that's vitally important in such a, if you want to call it like an alpha sport? Do you have to have that alpha mindset? If you're surrounded by big jock alpha bros, do you have to be like that to be able to lead those sort of people? Now, I don't think you do. I think you need to be able to stand up to them, but I don't think you need to behave like them. I've also written down. I had to jot a load of this down because I've been, like I said, I've been thinking about it all day. So I've put, who are the team going to follow? So at the end of the day, as I gave the example with Tom Brady, if Tom Brady has a fallout with the manager, head coach, and I think it's interesting as well if Tom Brady's been there longer. So say Tom Brady had been at that team a lot longer, and the new head coach comes in, they're all going to follow Tom Brady. But it's the other way around, and you've got like Jordan Burroughs is quite new, and you had a head coach who's been there for years. Who are they going to follow? Head coach. So I think how long you've been there makes a difference as well as to who's going to follow you, like the team wise. Um, and does it make a difference how good you are as a player? Can you have a player who is not very good but an incredible leader, or are there other players who are really, really good players, but they just can't lead? I think that's definitely the case with a lot of people. Um, I think it makes a big difference as well that who the supporters follow. So who the supporters will follow is not necessarily who's the leader of the team. So the supporters will follow the golden child of the team. So you've got your Patrick Mahomeses, you've got. I'll go into soccer football. If you look at someone like, prime example, Manchester City or Paris Saint-Germain, or they'll follow the striker. They'll follow the Mbappe of Paris Saint-Germain. They'll follow the Haaland of Man City. They'll follow the goal scorers, the flashy players, the star players. Is that player the leader? Generally not. Generally not. A lot of the time they've got too much influence. So, petulant number one, like 101 at the moment, Neymar. Neymar's a bit, he can be a bit stroppy, but he's the star of the show and he knows he's the star. So, the problem with that is he ends up with too much power. And if you've got someone petulant who's got too much power, it ruins the team completely. And I think Alex Ferguson knew that with someone like David Beckham. You've got someone who's a little bit petulant, getting a little bit too big for their boots, they've got to go. So ultimately, no one's bigger than the team. And if you've got a leader who knows that, it will work. But if you've got someone like Neymar who's going to disrupt, they want special treatment, you've now ruined the whole team. But that's your star player. That's who the supporters follow. That's who brings in the most amount of money. So, is it really worth financially bringing that player in who, yes, they might bring in huge amounts of revenue for people that are watching, shirts that sold, all that? Yeah, great, but they're going to ruin the dynamic of the team. I believe that will happen. If Mbappe goes to Real Madrid, I believe it's going to be the worst thing for Real Madrid. It looks at the moment, they've got an incredible young team. That team's going to be amazing for years. The last thing they want is Mbappe because he is a bad apple in my eyes. He's too he's got too much ego, and you don't need that in that team. There's a lot of ego in professional athletes anyway. You do not need that level of petulant. Like I said with Neymar, if Neymar goes to your team's ruined. I think he was the frustrating thing is when I've watched Brazil play, Neymar can be the difference between the team winning and losing. So if Neymar loses his head within a minute, the team's lost because the whole team just goes to shit. But if Neymar's on it, he can win the game. So it's very someone like that has too much influence when they're not a leader. I think the same goes for someone like, I think it's a very bad decision making Bruno Fernandes the captain at Manchester United. I think he's too petulant. I really do. He's stroppy. You don't want that as a leader. Someone who's gonna strop at the referee. You need someone who's just gonna take that bad decision on the chin and then control the rest of the team. Keep composure. Keep everyone on track. Not be the one who's having a strop and throwing his toys out the pram because everyone's going to follow you. So I think who the supporters follow is not necessarily who the team should follow. So that's a very, very interesting dynamic and quite complicated one as well. And I also think the last thing I wrote down about sports teams is the alpha dog as well. Sometimes you've got the big angry alpha dog, and I'll tell you, let's not say the alpha dog necessarily. So sometimes you can have like a very big jock rowdy player, but I want to give you one example. I'm thinking of Joey Barton. So Joey Barton, for anyone that doesn't know, I think at the time he was with Manchester City, maybe it might have been Burnley, something like that, and he had a fight with a player on his team, and he's always having fights with players on his team. Now, he's very aggressive and he's a leader on the pitch, but he could lose his head at any moment, so he might take it too far. Now, I think there's a line. It's a very bit of a grey area. Now, if you've got someone like Roy Keane wouldn't stand for any shit within his own team. But at the same time, he would go to war for any of his team against anyone else. Now, I think Joey Barton was the wrong side of the line, because I would say that he would just have a fight with anyone. So I think there would be times that he would just fight with his own team. But they made him captain because he was so imposing, so he had such a voice. But do you want someone who is so unpredictable as your captain? Would you rather have someone reliable, or would you rather have the big loud voice who's unpredictable? Because I'd rather have them. I'd rather have them as like my second. You don't want that as the person in charge of making decisions, which kind of works because if you're the manager of the team, that person isn't in charge. You're in charge. But maybe you've just given them too much power. Maybe you make them the assistant, vice captain, or something like that. I think it's a very very difficult thing to manage, and only you as the manager will know the dynamic of the team. Um, but yeah, I think giving it to someone who's the biggest player doesn't work. You can't give it to someone who's just the most tattooed player. Doesn't work. The one who's won the most doesn't work. I think there's a certain ingredient that needs to happen. Do you know something else interesting? I would say as well. I'd love to know what you think about how a different captain might suit a different team at a different time, if that makes sense. So, someone who'd make the best national team captain. So, say, like, for example, the Brazilian national team captain might be Thiago Silva because he's the best. He suits the Brazilian mindset very well, but he might not be the best Paris Saint Germain or Chelsea captain because his mindset's very different to, let's just say, the Chelsea team. I mean, it's a very mixed nationality. It might not work. You might not, you might, the culture might be very different of a lot of these players, and there might be some players who are very, um, very strong-willed within their culture. So he might be the best captain for Brazil, but he might not be the best captain for that team, Chelsea, for example. So I think that's very interesting about who the team is as well. Um, and the other thing that I thought as well that I've been thinking is, are there different types of leaders? Now I know there are, but what I mean is, and I have read some studies, and I need to go into this a bit more. But you have got things like motivational leaders, situational leaders. Um, I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but I was thinking about the film, the Top Gun 2. I love Top Gun 2. What a film. But I was thinking about like Maverick as a character. So Maverick would do what he wanted. He would go against the grain. He would do what was best. It was a bit of a lone wolf. I mean, the clue's in the name, Maverick. Uh, I think that at times can probably be your strongest trait for survival, for winning, whatever it may be. That sometimes you need a maverick to win in that situation, and other times that's the last thing you need. So again, being a maverick's very situational. But what I would say is, I remember watching it and thinking to myself, because there's parts in it they said, you should be an admiral by now, and you're not, and he's just like, is what it is, sort of thing. I'm not, because he's always causing too much trouble. Um, he's on the verge of getting thrown out every 2 minutes. but instead they just keep him in and they just never promote him. So, I mean, I had that situation at a company before. I was too controversial. Um, I would stand up for what was right instead of what the bosses wanted. So I'd go against what the money was asking me to do because it was wrong. Um, but they knew that I was so good the rest of the time. They wanted me there, but then at times they would say to me, "You have to do this because that's what they've asked," and I'd say no, and I'd just do what I wanted anyway because I knew it was the best thing to do. So yeah, sometimes I think being a maverick can go massively against you, but sometimes it can go for you. But that doesn't necessarily make you a leader. I think it just makes you generally a bit of a pain in the ass. But you could be incredibly good, you could be not. I just think it means that there's no barriers for you. You just do what you want, which is good in a way for a leader because you're not bound by tradition or what has happened before. You will go with your gut, you'll go with your instinct, you'll go with lessons you've learned, and you'll make the right decision on that and not what you've been told to do previously. Um, so this is something else that I was thinking as well. So I was thinking about someone like Winston Churchill. Um, so Winston Churchill, everyone would say he was a very motivational leader. He gave very good speeches. He he might not be the greatest tactician. I don't know, but let's just say he was a very motivational leader. He inspired the country, brought the country together, got everyone on the same page, wanting to, gave them a lot of internal motivation and belief in themselves, sort of thing. Let's just say. Here's what's interesting. I've said quite a few times, um, I believe a leader should be like a shepherd, should be very protective of his flock, blah, blah, blah. Here's what's interesting. You could have locked Winston Churchill in a tower and had a camera there, and he never met anyone ever. And he could have been there recording these motivational speeches and putting them out on the radio, but never met anyone. And you'd say, "Oh, well, he's our really influential leader," but he's never met anyone. All he's doing is coming up with these really inspirational quotes. So he's inspirational. Is he a leader? Or is he just inspirational? He's a galvanizer of people. Is he a leader? Now, I'm not saying he's not, but I'm saying hypothetically, if that's all he did, and all he did was motivate everyone, is he a motivator or is he a leader? And this is where I think the line gets a bit confusing, because if you've got someone who's a personal trainer and they are very motivating, does that make them a leader or does it make them a motivator? They've got a lot of knowledge in what they're telling you to do and they're motivating you to do it. Does that make them a leader? So I understand Winston Churchill did other things, I'm very aware of that, but if that was all he did, and if the whole country heard it and felt motivated by it and inspired by it, and they said Winston Churchill galvanized the country and the country stood firm together because of the speeches he made, we won the war because of him, he was a great leader, because he was Prime Minister. But he might have made no decisions ever. Again, I'm not saying he did or didn't, but you understand what I'm saying. I'd love to hear what you think on that. Do you think it's important? I mean, I've put the next point I've put is, could everyone follow a figurehead who is just a puppet? So this immediately makes me think of all the rumors that people say about in the American presidents. They're just a figurehead. They're just a puppet. They make no decisions. All they do is deliver because they've got charisma. They're great actors. They're great improvisers. Well, if that's the case, and that is all they are they really the leader? or is it an act? Because if that's the case, and they're not making decisions, they're not they're not great tacticians, they're not knowledgeable, but maybe they've been trained as to what to say, and they're very charismatic. So then would you say having charisma is what will make people follow you? Because essentially, if you're in a position where people are voting for you, you want the most charismatic person to be at the head of your team. So say you've got a team of 10 and the other team have got a team of 10 and 1,000 people are voting as to which team's going to be in charge, and then you get all the perks of your team being in charge. You want your most charismatic person to be the spokesperson, even if they're a complete and utter nugget who's got no idea of anything they're doing, but they're just very, very charming. And you constantly fill in their head with information that the rest of you 9 are, for example, incredibly good leaders, tacticians. What's best to win, but he's the charismatic, good-looking, charming. He fits the mold of what people are going to follow, and you put him forward. So who's the leader? The charismatic one that everyone is following? Because technically, the followers are following him, and he is now. So he is, in theory, the leader. Now, he could very quickly fuck that up. So, say, for example, you 9 then just left him, and then he was like, right, I don't like those 9 dickheads. He wouldn't be able to lead properly, and within 5 minutes, they'd figure him out and kind of go, he's a bit of a dick. He's rubbish, let's get him out. But while he's in charge, if we are making the decisions and we are running the operation, all 1,000 people, and we are getting the perks from our team staying in charge, technically we as a team are leading, but he's the figurehead. And I think this happens a lot, especially in companies, especially in big businesses. You get someone who's voted in as CEO, and you've got a board of directors. Some of those board of directors are just like borderline geniuses, but you need a spokesperson. You need a figurehead. They might be the most clueless person at the table, but they've got the most charisma, and they're the easiest, maybe on the eye, if you know what I mean. So I think having if that figurehead is followed by everyone, and the followership is following this person with charisma. It maybe is charisma the most important thing. Is it being motivational? Is it having charisma? Is it, those two things have involved. So the Winston Churchill example is someone who's very motivational, or you've got, let's just say a very clueless Barack Obama who had an incredible team behind him, but he knew nothing. Let's just say, and he was just a figurehead, but he had tons of charisma. So, which one's the better leader? Are they actually leaders? Because one of them's locked in a tower, doesn't know anything about anything, but writes a very good motivational speech, and then the other one knows nothing about nothing, but the ladies love him. He's got the black vote. He's the one who wins the team the vote between the Democrats and Republicans. So if everyone's voting for him, is he automatically the leader? Is he a great leader now? This is where I think a lot of people get it wrong. You're looking at it more as to, again, the followers are following that figurehead because he's saying the right thing, but he might be being told what to say. So is he really the leader, or is he just the face of the leadership? The last one I wanted to mention, was I was thinking about as well, and this one always plays in my mind. One of my favourite films, but Troy. So there's a part in this film where Agamemnon, the king of Greece at the time, I think, says, I think he says something like, "Of all the warlords favoured by the gods, I hate him the most," or something like that. And the point is, you've got all these kings, and I mean, right at the beginning as well, there's a really powerful bit where Agamemnon says to, I can't remember the name of the other king, and they're in Greece, and then he says, "Let's just do a one-on-one." And he's like, okay, cool, we'll do that. And he calls his fighter Boagrius, who's huge, and then Agamemnon calls for Achilles, who's still in bed. So Achilles gets up and he's like, "Ugh, all right." So he comes down, and then Agamemnon says, "I should have you whipped us for your insolence," or some shit like that. And then Achilles says to him, "Oh, all right, you fight him then," sort of thing, kind of like, wouldn't it be great when if kings fought their own battles? And he's just like, "I don't have to be here." But because he knows, and this is what I mean by the petulance, he's that good. He's the Neymar of fighting, of that era of warriors. Because he was just like, "I'm so good, shut your face. I can say what I want because you need me. The men follow me that much. I now have that much power." So he's a bit of a Tom Brady of the Greek army. You can't touch me. I'm untouchable now. You touch me, and the army aren't going to follow you. So he's got this kind of like whatever. And then what he does is he goes and kills this huge man, and then he's like, "What?" And then the bit that stands out massively is when the king comes up of the other army and kind of says, "Who are you?" And then he's like, give this scepter to your king." He's like, "He's not my king. I don't have a king," sort of thing. And just wanders off. And he's kind of like, "Who the fuck is that?" And I think that again, that's a very powerful image of kind of who has the power there. Who is the leader? Because Achilles doesn't want to be the leader. He doesn't want to. He's the leader of his myrmidons, I can't remember what they're called. His little group of fighters. He's the leader of them. But he's not the leader of the army. But the army follow him. And then when they see him do stuff, they worship him. Very much like Gladiator, when Maximus is in the arena, and then all the crowd start chanting for Maximus, and Maximus starts getting too much power, and then the emperor, is it Commodus, I think, I can't remember his name, the emperor's just like, "We got to kill him," and they were like, "You can't kill him because everyone would turn on you." So this person now has too much power. They've got more power than the shit leader, the shit person in charge, I should say, the shit king, the shit emperor, whoever they may be, the shit president. You've now got someone who everyone is following, but that person doesn't necessarily want to be followed. They are the superstar of their time. They are the petulant Neymar, the petulant Mbappe. They are that kind of superstar who has no leadership qualities, but all the people that see this person perform follow them because they love to see how amazing they are at what they do. So people naturally follow them. So they get a lot of power, but then they don't know what to do with it. They don't want it. Maximus doesn't want it. Achilles doesn't want it. They don't want people to follow them. They don't care. They're out for themselves, really. So again, the followers have put them into this position of power. So I'd love to know what people, or what you think on, what your opinion is on who is the leader in that scenario? Is Winston Churchill, if he's locked in a tower just making radio speeches, is he a leader? Is Barack Obama, if he's just a complete utter nugget who's got no mental capacity for anything, but all he is just incredibly charming, and they've trained him as to how to respond, is he a leader? Is the superstar fighter who, like Maximus or Achilles, they're just great at killing people, so the whole army is following them? Are they great leaders? Because I would say they're motivational. They rouse the people. Everyone's galvanized around them, and they're kind of like, "Oh, this is so exciting!" The energy. Does that make them good leaders? Would you want to follow them? Probably not. You'd put them in charge. This is the problem with when you get things like you get. Now, I'm not saying he did a bad job, but it's how someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes the governor of California because of what he did before. Because everyone's like, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. When everyone says, we'd all get behind The Rock to be president of America, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Slow down. He's a great actor. He's a good actor. He's done very, very well for himself. Is he the right person to be president? Maybe he is, if a figurehead who everyone's going to vote for is what you want. Donald Trump. Oh, don't even get me started on Donald Trump. That's a whole other thing in itself. That is a whole topic to itself. I definitely want to look at Donald Trump. But yeah, I'm going to leave you with that. Just a lot of stuff I've been thinking over. I really want to know what you think. I want to know your opinion. I want to know what your opinion is on if you watch the Super Bowl, who you think's in charge. Do you think it's imperative for a quarterback to be a leader on and off the field? Can you be a quarterback without being like that? I just think there's so many questions that open up so many other questions. Really, really interesting. So yeah, let me know what you think. I want to know. I've got so many questions and not enough answers, and I think everyone needs to get together. I need your help to figure this out, really. So yeah, get back to me. Let me know what you think. Please, if you think there's anyone else that would have a good opinion on this, then please forward them on. Forward them on. Let them listen, have an opinion. Tell me what they think. Because I really, really, really want to know. I want help in cracking this whole thing open. Because I think there's a lot of. We'll get to the end of it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out what makes a great leader. I mean, a lot of people, I think, believe they know, but I think they're wrong. So I think you can help with your opinion, and I think that is hugely important to the overall kind of getting everyone's voices together. It's all about research, numbers, quantitative data. We need those opinions, and your opinion matters. So yeah, spread the word. Let me know what you think, and yeah, I will see you again in another few days. Thank you for listening.